All right, let's everybody get back to your seats because it's about to get a whole lot more crazy now. This is a very interesting section we're going into here. It's going to finish up what I started talking about yesterday and never really got all the way through it. So the cosmos is a pretty mysterious place. And, you know, science has gone through all these stages where we think we know everything, only to find out, no, we're actually nowhere near ready to know the truth. We don't know the truth. And so this is another great example in which I've now showed you the DNA being rewritten while the organism is put under stress. So part of what I keep talking about is that we're going through a global initiation. Well, initiation, by definition, is a stressful event that happens to all of us on a collective level. And that is definitely happening. I mean, I have had death threats like you can't imagine for doing what I do. So I've certainly had to deal with stress in my own life. I've taken on the darkest, craziest villain on earth and exposed some things about them that I was told if I even did a Google search on it that they would be knocking on my door the next day, and that if I was lucky I could spend the rest of my life living in an underground facility. If I was lucky. And that more likely I would be tortured and then killed. So I went ahead and did it anyway because I've had this relationship with my higher guidance that's gone on now for quite some time, and the guidance said, you'll be okay. So I've had to take these leaps of faith and just trust that things are going to work out and that I'm going to be protected and everything's going to be okay. But it's not easy. So we've been talking about, just to summarize what we started with, we had the Tibetan Buddhist teachings of rainbow body. And if some people can do that, then why couldn't everybody do that? That's what I believe our destiny actually is. Our destiny is that we all achieve this higher level spiritual evolution. There is a class. And the only way that people are actually reaching this rainbow body is by trying to make it so that every thought they think is a loving thought. That's a very difficult discipline. But as I said, the law of one material explains that there are grades of evolution that we go through called densities, and that these density levels represent different benchmarks. And I also said that the extraterrestrials, like in the Roswell crash, that their responsibility, their main reason why they're here, is to help us usher through the next level of human evolution. Well, I made the mistake of thinking that it was all going to happen on December 21st, 2012, which was a nice fantasy. It was a beautiful theory. I mean, I loved the idea that it was true. But then I remember being more and more distressed as 2012 went on because it was like, people are not ready for this. If you got to be more than 50% loving, there's a lot of people who are not there. And I also had always seen in my dreams and visions about this that we were going to see the Illuminati exposed first, and we were going to get disclosure. That both of those things were necessary predecessors before any type of large-scale event took place. But just because a large-scale event did not take place in the year 2012 absolutely does not mean that it's been canceled, or that, oh, it's just going to be this long, slow, boring thing. Not at all. So in the 1950s, only 5 years after Roswell crash, and people started to find out the truth, and it wasn't so stigmatized as it is now, people were visited by extraterrestrials, and as I was saying, this started in 1952 by radio telegraph, which is Morse code over ham radio, done by Dr. Wilbert B. Smith. He was a Canadian radio engineer who also had a security clearance with the Canadian government and military. And in Grant Cameron's website, presidentialufo.com, you will see in there reports about how apparently Wilbert Smith was given pieces of the Roswell wreckage to analyze the metal. And the thing that was so crazy about it was very, very lightweight, but you could not do anything to damage the metal, not even a blowtorch. It just wouldn't bend or break at all, even though it was smashed. So he was trying to figure out more information about who are these people and what's going on, where did they come from. Well, the problem is the dead bodies don't talk. And the government's not about to let him interview E.B. So he had to go for other methods of communication. Well, this is what happened. He was contacted by the radio telegraph because he had basically prayed for contact. So he starts getting this message, and although it didn't happen to him, others who were contacted this way, the message literally says, "Go look in the backyard." And then there's a frickin' saucer back there. Okay, so that was happening. And it ultimately led up to some people that got so well communicated with that they got tuned up by this radio telegraph contact, and it led to conscious telepathy with these beings, which made their messages come through a lot faster. And although a lot of channeling is very dubious in nature, and people always are telling me, oh, this channeler said this and this channeler said that, and it all contradicts most of the time. What Wilbert Smith did is he came out with a 100-part questionnaire, and he asked, oops, let's go back. Now that I got good batteries in here, it's like it actually works, so I got to be careful I don't click it too hard. Over 100 questions were asked, and the people who really had access to the ETs were all giving the exact same answers. And that's pretty incredible. That's replicability, and that's genuine science. So this is a copy of the actual documentation where he gave a speech in 1958 and talked about what he was doing. And I gave this in the previous talk, too. The procedure in checking contacts was to ask a number of innocuous but significant questions and compare the answers with answers to the same questions that other contacts had given. Questions were of the type, do people live on the planet Mars? If so, what is the general shape of their houses? Do people on Mars use coinage money? If so, what does it look like? And so he goes on from there, but the point is that these people that are living on these other planets are not in our density. They're not in our reality. So we don't actually see them. We don't see their buildings and their civilization with the naked eye, per se. But they are there. One of the most important things that was revealed in this old channeling from the 1950s is that the human form is universal. It's throughout the entire galaxy, and much of the universe has human beings. This is one of the biggest disservices that we've been done by our government. We've been lied to. And we use words like creatures. The word creatures shows up all the time. Alien creatures. Well, they're not alien and they're not creatures. They're human beings. They're mothers and fathers with children that play, and, you know, it's families. We're not, and yet, why do you think they're so afraid of coming here right now? Think about it, right? What would happen? Would we treat them nicely? We can't even, I mean, I got next to some people on the plane from Nebraska. There it is right there. Do I even need to tell you the rest of the story, right? It's like, this guy actually said, where are you from? I said, upstate New York. He said, oh, there's like 7 people that live up there, right? He said, you know Noel Rosenblum or something like that? Well, yeah, there's like 7 people and 4 of them are Jews. I'm like, dude, are you serious? Well, you know that Obama, he wasn't born here. He just starts going through all this stuff. You know any welfare queens? Oh, my God, dude. So, you know, Arabs being called towel heads. I mean, I heard all kinds of crazy stuff. It's like, really? So, no, this was Nebraska. This was definitely Nebraska. So, anyway, if we can't even get along with people from another culture with a different skin color, then what happens when we meet people that have had 10,000 years of documented history or 50,000 years of documented history, and they were born on a totally different planet? And our media has disinformed us and said, oh, well, you know, they're shapeshifters and they're reptilians hiding under human skin and they're going to rip their face off. The biology is consistent throughout the universe. Everybody's got DNA. Everybody has tissue. These people can be shot. They can be hurt. They can be killed just like the rest of us. So they're looking at the tribal state that we're in, and they're realizing it might not be a very good idea to show up right now. Let's just kind of let these people sort this out and figure out what's really going on and come into a greater understanding. So this is the part of the talk where he says that the human form extends throughout the universe, and that the form of Let's see, did I go backwards? Oh, there we go. Okay. And he's using the typical gender-biased language of the 1950s. He says, the human race in the form of man extends throughout the universe and is incredibly ancient. Also, its appearance in physical form is only one of many manifestations that it makes along its line of progress. So that's very cool. That means that, look, what's happening here on Earth of people with flesh and blood bodies, that's happened over and over again. That's the cosmic plan. So as impossible as it may seem that we could go to some other level as a planet, it's going to happen because it always does. We go through a dimensional shift. I also, in the previous talk, gave this quote where he says, I am informed that science is really much simpler than we imagine and all the parts fit together with no corrections. And if we do this, we will be able to enjoy the technology and the way of life demonstrated to us by this presence of spacecraft and our brothers from elsewhere. That everything is part of a single jewel. That's another thing that he said. So I also described in my other talk the 1950s contacts. This is also, again, if you check out Gaiam TV, and please, if you sign up for my show, Wisdom Teachings, you got to do it through wisdomteachings.com, not through GaiamTV.com, because it's only if you sign up through the link that says wisdomteachings.com that I actually get any financial credit for the fact that you signed up or that you stay subscribed. And there will be other ways to do it too. I'm going to have affiliate links, and when I work with those affiliates, they will have their own links so that they get some of the credit too. But right for now, that's the only way I actually get any credit for it myself. So in the talk, I summarized it by saying, this is a guy, Baird Wallace, who wrote a book called The Space Story and the Inner Light, a series of articles by Baird Wallace. Here is the publication date. It's 1972. And this is fascinating material because this is a summary of the information that came through from all of the contacts that Wilbert Smith vetted out as actually being authentic. All of this information in this book is a summary of the stuff that was 100-part questions and everybody answered it the same way. And what it tells us is, get ready, buckle your seatbelt, and get ready for blast off. Because something much bigger is going to happen on Earth than what we have seen happen up until now. There is apparently going to be an incredibly profound cosmic metamorphosis. And again, it's so ridiculous that a lot of people think that just because it didn't happen in 2012 that the whole thing's been canceled. It shows up in Islam. If you read the end of my book, Synchronicity Key, I have some amazing quotes from the Quran. It shows up, I just found it in the Book of Enoch. I haven't had time to put that into the show either. Those quotes and many others are going to be in a similar talk I'm doing, but it's 7 hours, and it's in 2 weeks at LAX Hilton Hotel through Conscious Life Expo. So you can go to consciouslifeexpo.com and find that talk there. That's longer than what I have time to do today, so I'm going to go into more detail, including a lot of these other quotes that all say the same thing I'm going to give you here. The contact information states that our solar system is transitioning from third to fourth density, and it's going into a new area of space. This is what creates the so-called golden age. It's a total dimensional shift in the way that the world runs. Everything changes. This movement is changing the vibrational rate of the nucleus of the atom in our world. So the matter itself is transforming. This will have great impact on the form and expression of plant and animal life on our planet, and it will have great impact on the consciousness of human beings. This has already started and is now amplifying because we have fallen behind the grade of evolution that we're supposed to be at on this planet in our spiritual level, and we're not prepared for the change. Then it says the quality of life in fourth density is a quality of emergence, the recognition from childhood of the inner presence of the Creator. We all sort of wake up to that. In this cycle, we undergo many changes and refinements in our sensitivity of our physical body. There's a whole new vista and scope of the nature of life that opens up before us, and we live in the knowledge that we have a deep indwelling allegiance to the Spirit of the Creator. Summarizing various sources dealing with these events, there will be major rearrangements in the orientation of the planets and moons within our solar system. That's a big frickin' change. Because something is happening now that's keeping all the planets on a very mathematically precise orbit, right? down to the second. You can time it out year after year. It's 365.2422 days. What it says is that an invisible planet close to the sun called Vulcan will be absorbed into the sun. Pluto is going to get kicked out of the solar system like a billiard ball. The moon is going to actually peel away from the Earth's orbit completely and become its own planet. And the remaining planets will have major changes in their orbital paths. Something big happens to make that occur. And think about the fact that it would get kind of windy on Earth. If we go from 365 to 370 days, as he says elsewhere here, I believe this event is literally the cosmic manifestation of the fulfillment of the prophecies of Jesus regarding ascension, the coming of the bridegroom. The contact sources tell us that solar emanations from this newly transformed sun will have a direct impact in refining and spiritualizing our nervous system as we pass into this new condition of life that is being brought to this world. And again, over 30 ancient cultures have encoded in their mythology the basic mythological concept of the Golden Age. It is very, very consistent. It's always, hold on a minute, it's always tethered to a 26,000-year cycle. And the cycle ends as of 2012. We're now in the new cycle, but apparently this big change that they've been prophesizing hasn't happened yet. Question in the back.
When did this material originate that they came up with the name of the planet Vulcan?
Before Star Trek. This was in the 1950s. And in fact, Gene Roddenberry was involved in channeling, and so most of what happened in Star Trek was the result of him going into these channelings, and they were leaking real information through Star Trek, believe it or not. Yeah. Yeah, MJ-12 did also leak information into Star Trek. That's a very consistent thing. The military-industrial complex has been using fiction to tell us the truth for a long time. But we can't start going into questions or we're going to miss a lot of really amazing stuff, and I don't want you to miss it. So another contact that was vetted out by Wilbert Smith through the method of 100 questions that I showed you is called the Brown Notebook. That's what Carla called it. This was a book that was stashed away at L&L Research, and she'd kept it in this very nasty old brown manila folder. And it was a bunch of typewritten pages. Nobody's ever seen it. And I put them all together and scanned them when I found the stuff that got me the most excited. So you can see, again, this is another guy that was vetted out by Wilbert Smith. It was accurate channeling. Friday, September 19th, 1958. Hear my words, and I'll just go from men back to a gender-neutral term so that it doesn't get so sexist sounding. Hear my words that all people are created equal. The time will come when all your planet will know this. And then look at that. It says, O Dinah, my son, O Dinah. Now, is that some weird southern song that you sing on the prairie? Oh, Dinah! No. It's because it was saying Adonai, but they didn't know how to spell it. So they spelled it Adonai. Right? O-D, Ad, in, and then the letter A. So that's the word that normally is spelled A-D-O-N-I, A-D-O-N-A-I, which is actually the Lord God in Hebrew. Isn't that interesting? September 20th, light and love are the basis of a true understanding of the Creator. This will only be found by sincere effort. We of the Confederation intend to help you. Seeking is a prime requisite for a beginning. Love and understanding will come later. So people that come to this conference are seekers. You want the truth. You're interested in the mystery of what the heck is the UFO phenomenon. And love and understanding come later as you put it together on a deeper level. And again, the transcript of the Brown Notebook is available on llresearch.org. They don't have the actual scans of the originals, but they do have the text. So all this stuff you can go back and read. And I actually did put this out a long time ago on my website in a book called 1950s ETs Reveal the Golden Age. If you go back to that, Google up 1950s ETs on my website, you can find these documents. So it says, your people love wealth and power. How much better it would be if they would love one another. Wealth and power keep you enslaved so you cannot realize your true being. Well, the slavery is breaking because none of us have any wealth or power anymore, right? It's shit. But we do have the power thanks to the internet, and we're coming together as a collective. The Creator is ever loving, ever guiding, ever protecting to those that accept it. This is also very simple, people of Earth. The man you call Jesus said it very simply. Love one another. It's that easy. Love your Creator. Love one another. Your masses should do this. Now, I love this next line. It would change the very foundation of their existence. Reality is a participatory process, and as we change, reality changes with us. So that's why I think we need disclosure to happen. We need the Illuminati, the whole media cartel to break down. We got to see what these people are doing. We got to see who they are. We got to learn some very ugly stuff. And then we need disclosure. We need to find out the truth. We need to get the information that's been hidden from us, because once our minds start opening on a collective level, it actually alters the laws of physics that apparently creates this dimensional shift. So it's not like a cosmic light switch that just bings off on 2012. 2012 is the beginning of when it's possible. But we don't know exactly when it's going to happen. It depends on factors that haven't all yet been decided. If your people are to survive this coming cataclysm, you must do this. The Creator is bringing your solar system back into balance, and we must do our part. Live, love, and learn the wishes of your Creator, and you cannot go wrong. So they're making it very clear that they're anticipating a cataclysmic change in the solar system. And this is different than the stuff that's in Baird Wallace's book, by the way. This is a totally other source that he wasn't quoting from. That stuff I told you before. They're all saying the same thing. October 6, 58. A new dawn of understanding is coming to your planet. You must be prepared for this, as it employs new concepts and ideas. Now that sentence to me probably is where the channel was a little bit waffling, like the sentence probably got interrupted by the conscious mind, because it's not a very good sentence. I've seen that happen to myself when I do channeling. You got to really not pay attention to what you're saying, or you start to interfere with it a little bit. And I've gotten pretty good at not doing that. The people of Earth have lingered long under false illusions. The time has come to step forth in new and greater glory. People of Earth, learn the wishes of your Creator. Live the way you were intended to live, in peace, harmony, and perfection. When you do this, the beauty of the whole creation will be revealed to you. Be patient and understand the things that are happening. And he's been talking about these planetary changes. So understand what's going on here. This is not just a bunch of bad things. The things we will talk about this morning are very serious. In your present state on this planet, you must change if you are going to survive. Many things will take place on this planet, and that's understatement of the century, right? It's a lot more than, oh, many things. What is he talking about? Oh, it's a lot more than you think. Many things will take place on the planet. Therefore, you have to change with the planet. Now check this next sentence out. I had chills all up and down my spine when I first read this. This solar system is moving into an area of space where the vibrations are much higher. This will cause changes in your planet's features. Oh, hello. That's a little bit big, isn't it? Changes in your planet's features. Yikes. We're talking about major changes here. We're talking about mountain ranges being formed and huge, huge stuff. It will also cause changes in your physical bodies. Your peoples will change. A human evolution. The vibrations on the planet will become higher. Therefore, you have to raise your vibrations in order to exist on the planet. Whoa! These vibrations can only be raised by your thinking. So this is where it gets really biblical. This is where what these beings are saying is what W.B. Smith called evangelical. They are saying that there is sort of a window of opportunity to make the grade, but that if you don't make the grade by a certain point, the Earth shifts in such a way that you are going to portal off to another planet if you're not ready to stay here. And it's not painful, it's not disastrous, but it is going to be a big deal. And so it appears that the Earth, that all of these bad guys are going to just not even be here anymore. They're going to be cleansed. And that's what in the book of Matthew is called the harvest. That the tares, or the wheat, the weeds rather, are plucked out one by one. So it is evangelical, but you know, if Jesus was real, let's deal with this ascension thing. Why did he transform into this light body? And what was he saying about stuff like the rapture? Well, this is a much more elaborate, scientific, technical view of rapture, because that's what these Tibetan guys are doing. They're rapturing themselves, right? That's what happens. Their body goes and turns into light. So there's something very interesting going on here, and I don't think you should be afraid of it because all you have to do is be nice. If you just be nice, if you can be 50% or more loving rather than evil, you're fine. And the earth is going to go into this new realm of existence that is so far beyond what we normally would think is possible that it's just completely outside most people's reality box. So now they give you a little more advice on how to do this. Thinking better thoughts of everything in the creation, more spiritual thoughts, thoughts that lift the people of earth out of darkness and the mud they've lived in for so long. The principle of free will is very important. You can change and live on this planet in a truly divine kingdom, or you can decide not to change, destroy yourself, and you will reincarnate back onto a third density materialistic world where you continue to try to learn these lessons. So, you might want to change so you can see the revealing of the kingdom, this divine kingdom. This has been a rather long message, so I will leave you now. So it's just sort of giving you a polite, friendly warning. Yeah, you might want to think about being nice. Because it's a good insurance policy. This one also blew me away. Look at this. This planet and solar system are moving into a new area of vibrations in which the conditions that exist on Earth now will not survive. There's no equivocation on that. In fact, it also says this in the Law of One. Once the shift into fourth density is complete, Earth becomes inviable for biological life. The human body cannot live on the Earth as it goes into fourth density because there's such a big climate change that it's not like you can make it. Except maybe in underground bases, and that gets into the whole story of the Greys. If you look at the work of Dr. Dan Burrish, he claims that the Greys told our government that they were descendants of people who had lived underground on Earth and had to move away after 20,000 years because even that didn't work anymore. And that they came back here to sample our DNA to try to rejuvenate their supply because they say there was a catastrophe on Earth. It wiped out the surface. They were living underground, but they only had a small gene pool. And as a result, they're now having this disease called degenerative neuropathy, which makes them kind of have to walk like this. Their whole body starts to disintegrate. And so they're coming back, and the abduction thing is that they're trying to sample our DNA to build up their own stock, which is why they're having these hybrid children. The whole purpose of the hybrid children apparently is to try to rejuvenate their genetic supply. But they're us. They're us after we evolved into this other form because we're growing now fetuses in the test tube, and then they're floating in this fluid, and they retain the proportions of the fetus into adulthood, which is why they have the large head and the skinny little body. And they have little lenses that they put over their eyes to protect from the sun, which has now gotten a lot brighter. So that's the story of the Greys. The Greys are actually descendants of all the Illuminati families that hide out in underground bases. So we're told, and it's fascinating. I mean, it's a very strange story, but it makes sense. Yeah. Sounds like the Warlocks from H.G. Wells. There's several different stories that seem to correlate with this, and in fact, the movie The Last Mimsy totally tells the story. They either ripped off Dan Burrish, or it's actually a true thing that they're trying to disclose. Question over here. Uh-huh. Well, that's one view. For those who didn't hear that, because it's probably not audible for most of the audience or on the video, he was saying, what about this technology of the Archons to wipe out the soul from the body? You know, what I go with for my own personal basis is something that I can prove. I can prove that the Law of One material is loaded with verifiable science. I've gotten over 200 data points out of the Law of One that I can prove are true before that data came out as scientific fact. Because of that, I put the Law of One in a different category than all other intuitive teachings, except for this stuff that I'm showing you now. And nowhere in the Law of One does it say that the soul can be wiped out of the body. In fact, they specifically say that a nuclear explosion is actually a multidimensional explosion that ruins the soul, and that therefore in Hiroshima and Nagasaki they actually had to go in a split second before the bomb went off and pull people's souls out of their bodies first so that the soul itself wouldn't be destroyed. So there's no evidence that that's going on in the law of one. That's what I'm going to go with. So they're basically saying here the conditions on Earth right now will not survive. And again, this is why this is the graduate class, right? You got to pay extra and really want to be here, but I'm not going to give you lollipops. You know, I want to be clear that you saw the pedigree of where this information came from. You see that it's coming through multiple sources. Many, many ancient teachings also say this, and the law of one also says this. So if I had to go in one direction or the other on the spontaneous versus gradual side, I am definitely on the spontaneous side. Yeah. Yeah.
Regarding the law of one, I know only two people that is talking about the law of one. You are one of them, and Bashar is the second one.
Right.
And I was amazed that never you was talking each other about the other
Sure.
guy.
Well, you know, Bashar's out there and I'm out there, and he's doing what he's doing, I'm doing what I'm doing. It's all good.
Because you're backing each other.
Yeah, I understand. So let's go on, because if we keep having all these questions, there's so much more stuff that I have for you that we're going to totally run out of time. We have a wall. I cannot run over. We got somebody coming in the room right after me. So I want you to hear this because we're not done. This is a scary part, but on the other hand, it's like what they're saying is it's all good. The earth is going to be transformed into a Garden of Eden paradise, just like in the beginning, so shall it be in the end. The Golden Age occurs in antiquity, and it also comes back. So what we're dealing with is a world that will be transformed, and all of these people who are creating all this bad stuff, like the Federal Reserve and blood-sacrificing Illuminati and all this stuff, they're just there for you. They're there to give you the grist for the mill to create your awakening. But then, look, if you look at the Illuminati problem and you understand as much about it as I do with the military-industrial complex and all these underground bases that they have and all the technology that they have, how could they ever be defeated? It requires some sort of cosmic divine intervention for that to happen, for us to actually have a happy ending. And that's what these ETs are telling us. They're the managers of this. So they're allowing the bad guys to do a certain amount of stuff, because if we didn't have stuff like Fukushima happening, we wouldn't be inspired to want to grow and awaken. And that's what this is really all about. There's a certain amount of badness that's allowed to occur to wake us up. And what did I say about the roundworm and Drosophila fly and the Italian wall lizard and the birds on the Galapagos? I said stress creates evolution. And that's exactly what the Tibetan rainbow body teaching is about. If you don't have enough stress, you don't make it to rainbow body. You have to experience stress, you have to be stressed, and then you have to not let it define you. And you have to seek the love in that moment of stress. That's the whole teaching. It's all about transformation. So let's go on now. Love, peace, and harmony is all that will exist in this true creation. Many will not believe this story, but if they do not believe, they're not going to be punished. They're simply moved to another planet. So you don't get punished, you just don't get to be here anymore. That's not really a punishment. It's just you move to the place that's appropriate for your level of learning. They're moved in a just manner. It's not fearful or terrifying. And they all get to, know where they went and what happened, at first at least. And then they will again try to learn the lessons of love, peace, and harmony all over again. People of all planets must live in love, peace, and harmony if they are to receive the full blessings of the Father, Mother, God. I will leave you now and we will talk again. I am your friend and companion in service of the Father, Mother, God, Hatan. So then it goes on from there, and it says, others try to rule by force. This should not be. Free will was created. Why should the wrong thinking of a few be forced upon many? All of these things are making your planet unbalanced on and around it. At times, the Father, Mother, God has to rebalance some of the planets and solar systems, and that is what is about to take place on your planet. Conditions on your planet cause unbalance in your entire solar system, so it must be balanced back into the harmony of the creation. Now, these people are totally outside of time, so just because this hasn't happened yet doesn't mean they can't see it coming. This is all, I believe, totally real. And then here I only included this bit so that you can see Hatan in the top quote at the bottom, I am your teacher and friend Hatan, and then down here it says, I am very happy to be with you this evening. I am Latwi. L-A-T-U-E is pronounced Latwi. Now, interestingly enough, Carla, who channeled the Law of One, read this book before she ever channeled, and it tuned her up. This material is very high-minded, and this is where she got Hatan and Latwi from, because before she started to channel the Ra contact, she actually channeled Hatan and Latwi. So I'm aware that I'm telling you some pretty heavy stuff here, but I want to be clear that I think it's better, if this is what's going to happen, I think it's better to know about it than not to know about it. Wouldn't you want to know if this is the truth, if this is what's really going on? Don't you want to know? I want to know. And the cool part is that most of this channeling, the big focal point every year for all the people that were doing this was right frickin' here in Giant Rock Joshua Tree. So it's like you're at the mecca of where this was all taking place, including the contacts that led to these channelings coming through. So one of the most important figures, as I said last time, George Hunt Williamson, another really very influential figure in all this, wrote a whole bunch of books, and he was the main attraction here at Joshua Tree when these conferences happen every year that were attracting like 5,000 people. So sorry, Paul, we haven't made it there yet, but it'll happen. It's going to maybe next year, right? So he wrote Other Tongues, Other Flesh, Secret Places of the Lion, Other Voices. The one we're going to focus on right now is called Road in the Sky. What do you think that refers to? A stargate. That's a stargate. A road in the sky is an old-fashioned Native American term for a stargate. Now, this book was printed in 1959, as you see right here. So I want to get that clear, because you can go buy Road in the Sky on Amazon. There's still copies out there. Now we're going to look at page 252. This is the fruits of that radio telegraph contact I was talking about. In 1952, we were told that our planet and our entire solar system was entering the outer fringes of a great cosmic cloud or area of intense cosmic ray activity. As we entered the fringes of this field of energy, our Earth starts to change, and we experience the first effects in strange, bad weather. Look at what's happening with California right now. The whole frickin' state is so dry, it's an emergency, which I think is actually the result of manipulation by HAARP, but that's another lecture. They're trying to ruin our food supply because the negative forces are aware that they have very little time left, and they're trying to throw the world into chaos. It says in the Law of One that the negative forces are what they call the Orion Confederation. And it says in the Law of One that they can mess with a planet up until it achieves social memory. But once a planet achieves social memory, which means that the veiling is dropped, then the negative cannot do anything else at that point. So social memory is achieved when enough of us start to think lovingly. That's when the veil comes down. So we begin experiencing these energetic changes in strange weather, ice caps melting, large earthquakes, increases in cosmic ray activity, and radio interference. The governments of the world knew about this in classified programs. They were very concerned and set up special projects to study radiation and its effects on organic life. And I'm going to cut ahead to this. This is what his contacts from the 1950s told him, and this is all stuff that was vetted out by W.B. Smith. Our entire solar system is entering a new possibility area of the universe, and technically that's the galaxy, a new region of the galaxy. Every phase of our life will be changed completely. Economics, well, that's pretty obvious. We're probably not going to have a money system at all. Religion, we're not going to play my God is better than your God anymore. Education, look at how much I've done to change the way science runs compared to what we think it is. And just education in general, it shouldn't have to be based on grades and coercion. Politics. In Atlantean times, they had these U-shaped collars that they wore, and if you told a lie, it energetically sensed it and it started choking you. We could sure use some of those now. But believe me, if the government found them, they buried them way in the back of the warehouse at Area 51. Science, of course, that's going to change. Social life, that's already starting to happen. One time I was on a psychedelic drug, let's just put it that way. Okay, it was LSD-25, it was lysergic acid. And I had this box bug out. I said, my God, because I was walking down the street tripping, and I said, everybody's living in a box, right? I don't even know who these people are, and this is my street. And they put these little boxes of garbage out in front of the house. And they got the box of the stuff they want, the box of the stuff they don't want. And then I'm like, wait a minute. We sleep in a box. The bed is like a box. We drive to work in a box. We're sealed off from everybody else. We work in a cube, a little box. We're entertained at work by a box, a computer. We come home and we're entertained by the dancing glass colors on the glass box of the television set. And then when you die, where do they put you? In a frickin' box. Holy smokes. And I'm like, I got to tell the world about this. You know, when you're tripping, you think this is like this brilliant insight. I call it the box bug out. You can bug out on the box for a long time. Social life, I think it's going to become a lot more community-oriented, and that's what's starting to happen at events like this. We need to see each other and find out that we're not crazy. Well, some of us are crazy. There's a few crazy-looking people in here, but for the most part, we're not crazy. Medicine, that's a big one because energy can completely heal the body. You don't need any pharmies at all. Pharmaceuticals is just an old paradigm to make money. Eating habits, that's very obvious once you start to figure out what's going on. As it turns out, some people I know who have worked for the cabal in the past told me in no uncertain terms they weaponized our food supply. There are certain things that are weaponized. One of the biggest ones is wheat, and that's whole wheat and regular wheat. It has a chemical in it called gliadin that simulates the thyroid hormones so that your thyroid takes it up as if it was thyroid hormone. What does that do? That means you have no energy and you're constantly tired. And gliadin also makes your body think that it needs more food than it really does. It shuts off the satisfying part that says, oh, I've eaten enough. So when you eat wheat, you eat so much that your stomach is going to blow, practically. Another thing that is weaponized is refined sugar. Refined sugar is as dangerous as cocaine. And you really should not eat sugar at all unless it's natural stuff like brown rice syrup, molasses, honey, evaporated cane juice is okay. But stevia is great. You know, you just want to, anything that's more like in the vegan side of things is usually okay. Agave nectar is really right on the edge. I don't really recommend very much of that. But for God's sake, anything that's got regular sugar in it, it's a weapon. And one of the biggest things that they did that they weaponized is processed food and fast food. This guy that worked for the cabal told me that they actually figured out that they could put in all the fast food chains into these developing countries, and that before the fast food shows up, the people will fight tyranny down to the last man, woman, and child, throwing rocks at the tank as it's about to roll them over. But as soon as you give them McDonald's and Burger King and taco smell, man, they'll just let you come right in, do whatever you want. Why? Because the food is a weapon. It is given chemicals to make you smell things that are nutritious, and it tastes really good, but your body is getting more and more sick, and they're doing this on purpose. So I highly recommend that you go back to a natural diet as much as possible. It will really help. So there's some fear porn for you, huh? But it's true. I mean, don't you want to know? If people told me that they weaponized our food supply, don't you want me to tell you that? Okay, thank you. You cannot stay overweight if you don't eat wheat and sugar. It's very hard to keep weight on your body and be obese if you don't eat wheat and sugar. It's actually really difficult. And one other thing I'll add is, too, ethically raised meat is much better than factory farm meat. They've also weaponized factory farming to some degree with all these chemicals and hormones and nonsense that they're putting in it. So that's why I never go after dairy. I don't do any dairy at all. Dairy is just out. And when I eat meat, I eat like buffalo steak or ground buffalo or fish. That's the two things that are the best. But if you go for the natural meats that don't have hormones and antibiotics, they're not weaponized. So that's much better. The weaponized meat is what's causing arterial sclerosis, heart disease, all this kind of stuff. So, and that's why also Dr. Weston Price, as I talked about yesterday, gave us this technology in the form of Activator X, and what he found was that natural food that's actually like animals that are raised in an ordinary way with ordinary stuff, they have a chemical either in the dairy, it's like one form of it is in butter oil, or in the case of like animal protein, this chemical in it actually digests the cholesterol so you don't get heart disease, your arteries don't clog up. And he found that he could supplement this stuff in, and it would actually have a huge impact on your health. So Aurora's in the back there. We have like, I think maybe 7 or 8 bottles of the fish oil stuff left. It's $40 a bottle, and we had a lot more, but we sold it all. But anyway, you can add this stuff into your diet, and it will actually make a big difference in how well things digest and how much health you have. So that's a very useful thing. You can go to greenpasture.org, greenpasture.org, and if you put an S on it, that becomes this fundamentalist Christian website that I don't recommend at all. And then you can order, there's a couple different things they have. They have blue ice fermented skate liver oil, that's what we got here, that's the best stuff. And they also have butter oil, they also have fermented cod liver oil, different things like that. But basically, the ideal combination is that you do the butter oil and you do the fish oil, because then you're getting land and sea at the same time. You had a question over here. Well, look, man, the bottom line is that we're being protected by higher beings. There's probably nothing you can totally trust, but just try to err on the side of caution, you know. It's better to try to buy organic, even if it's not actually organic, than to just say, screw it, I'm not going to worry about it. The body is made to take in a lot of toxins. Like, I'll give you a funny example that's actually true. I had these chocolate bars, and they're wrapped in foil. And, you know, it got in my car. I went to the Ancient Aliens taping last week. I taped a whole bunch of episodes for them, and my chocolate melted in the car. And the foil wrapper got into the chocolate, and I couldn't get all of it out. And I said, you know what? Screw it. The human body knows how to deal with this stuff. I'm just going to shoot it out the other end. Big deal. So I ate the foil, and I ate the chocolate in the foil. I'm not recommending you try this at home. But I'm not worried about it. I don't always test to make sure, you know, everything is just right. But, you know, there's things you can do. So, anyway, let's stay on track here. We got some really cool stuff from the Bible that makes a lot more sense of what these 1950s ETs were actually telling us. This is the book, the same book we've been reading out of now. It says, and so it is written, the first man, Adam, was made a living soul, and the last Adam was made a quickening spirit. And that's 1 Corinthians 15:45. What the heck does that mean? That means that everybody up until now is the Adam. That's the human race. And we are living, we are biological. But the next Adam, the last Adam, that comes in the golden age is a quickening spirit. We become spiritual beings, beings of light, not beings of flesh. Then in 1 Corinthians 15:47, don't you love it when I get all biblical? It makes it just feel so good. The first man is of the earth, earthy, that's everybody up until now. The second man is the Lord from heaven. Now, traditional Christians would say, oh, that's Jesus. But then it becomes very clear as you keep reading, they're not just talking about Jesus. They're talking about everybody. Now we're going down to 1 Corinthians 15:49 through 53. This really blows me away because it's right out there, and it's based on lots of other ancient scriptures, including Zoroastrian scripture and Hindu scripture. As we have borne the image of the earthy, we shall also bear the image of the heavenly. Now this I say, brethren, flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God. Wow, okay. What is that saying? That means your biological body transmutes just like the Tibetan rainbow body, right? That's what's going on here. Oh, man, I don't know if I want to do that. Well, okay, cool. Then you got 25,000 more years to think about it. It's up to you. Flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God. And by the way, this is not some agonizing, terrible death. It's ecstatic, dimensional shift, just like going through a portal. These people that go into rainbow body in Tibet, they're in ecstasy. And sometimes it happens spontaneously. They just go... It's like Padmasambhava, the original Buddha. Okay. Flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God, neither can corruption inherit incorruption. In other words, the flesh is corrupt. It's got corruption in it. It's built to rot and die after a certain period of time. The soul is incorruptible. Then it says, behold, I show you a mystery, and I love this line. We shall not all sleep, but we shall be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye. That's not talking about a slow, gradual... 20 years later, something's happened. Yeah, I guess it's changed. No. In a twinkling of an eye, meaning, well, shit, it just happened. What's going on? Oh my God, I'm flying. What's happening? Literally, that's what they're saying. It sounds evangelical, but that stuff's in the Bible, right? Nobody wants to deal with it. Oh, the rapture, those are crazy people. Well, there's something scientific to it, and it's back to the fact that the DNA doesn't have the information of the soul. The DNA is a conduit for information. That's why when you're put under stress, this is the theme of the talk today, stress transforms you. Those birds that are put in an environment where they can't eat seeds anymore, their body says, oh, I'll make a beak that eats the seeds that are still available. The roundworm that doesn't have the ability to eat lactose says, oh, I'll evolve my mouth parts so that they can digest lactose. And on down the line. So we're going through this global initiation. We shall change in a twinkling of an eye. And then it says, at the last trump, for the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible. Now, what the heck do you think the trumpet means? It's a vibration. The sounding of the trumpet is a metaphor of a vibrational change, a sound frequency change. The dead shall be raised incorruptible. This is talking about spiritual death. And what they say in the Law of One is that the veil drops. You no longer are shielded from cosmic consciousness. You can access the greater matrix of the universal mind now. And they explain that we all get telekinesis, telepathy, levitation, time travel, all of these great abilities. They don't happen immediately, but they happen pretty quick once you go through this. Because all you have to do is start trying, and then you find out that it works. And if you have a lucid dream, it already works in your lucid dream. So go try that out. Go try a lucid dreaming practice. When you get control over a dream, you can do any of the stuff I'm telling you about right now. I love to fly through walls, fly through windows, push my hand through solid objects, change the shape of my physical body, snap my fingers and go into an entirely different location. I first started doing this when I was a weed head. I literally conjured an entire barn filled with marijuana. And I opened it was the best skunky, lemony, oh, it was just amazing. And I opened the barn doors, and I get drowned in marijuana. The purest, greatest, saucy little buds everywhere. And then I actually manifested a giant metal salad bowl about this big around and took a pipe and stuck it in the bottom and then got this huge freaking blowtorch and took the weed and just packed the bowl, just boom, 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 boom. Oh my God! I'd never been so high. It was awesome. And then you wake up and you're not stoned. It's like, well, okay, but it worked in the dream. That's the kind of stuff that I want to do. I was doing this as an adolescent teenager in high school. I manifested a sports car. And man, I manifested this incredibly awesome car. I was just driving around doing all kinds of crazy stuff. The one thing that for me never worked is I tried to manifest a woman to have sex with. And I literally ended up, like it started to happen. And let's just say that parts of my clothing were no longer on, particularly from the waist down. And then all of a sudden, 1 minute, this is what's about to happen, and everything is getting hot and ready, and then the next thing you know, I'm standing there, and there's this room full of people in a ring, and they're all pointing at me and laughing. So if you try to do lucid dreaming, bear in mind that you're not the one controlling everything, and that sometimes if you go too far, you're going to be humiliated. They did not like me trying to do anything sexual out there. That was something I learned a long time ago. But weed, yeah, they let me smoke weed. So go figure. They say it's medicine. So, hey man, it's medicine. I got 21 years of clean time, so I can talk about my past with impunity. So let's go on here. It's going to become like a global lucid dream, except now it's not a dream, it's actually daily reality. If there even is such a thing as a day, because apparently it's light all the time now. There's always this light around that you can see. So we will look for new heavens and a new earth in which there will be righteousness. That's 2 Peter 3:13. It says, "Behold, I create new heavens and a new earth, and the former heaven and earth shall not be remembered or even come into mind." Isaiah 65:17. That's crazy. It's such a big change that you don't even remember what it was like before. You're so in that new reality. The promise for the people who remain is found in Isaiah 66:22. "For as the new heavens and the new earth which I will make shall remain before me, saith the Lord," you got to put those biblical things in, "so shall your seed," i.e. your DNA, as we now know, "and your name remain." And this last bit really blew me away. "There shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars." That's the interplanetary climate change that in my other work I show you everything in the solar system is energetically transforming. The planets are getting hotter, they're getting brighter, they're getting more magnetic. "And upon the earth there will be the distress of nations with perplexity." That's happening right now for sure. We got Iraq, we got Israel and Gaza, we got all this crazy stuff going on. Ebola panic, and that's just like in the last 2 weeks. And just take a snapshot of any part of our history. There's all this crazy stuff going on. "The sea and the waves are roaring, men's hearts failing them for fear, and looking after those things that are coming on the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken." So this is an ominous time, it would appear. "And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud," interestingly enough, "with power and great glory." What do you think the cloud is? It's a flying craft. That's just what they're calling it. The Son of Man represents, in Law of One terms, they actually say there's a whole group of fourth density beings that come to welcome us into fourth density. There is a welcoming committee, and that's this big mass visitation of UFOs that will occur at some point. They don't show up until the very, very last minute, right before this is about to happen. "Then shall they see the Son of Man come in a cloud with power and great glory, and when these things begin to come to pass, then look up and lift up your heads, for redemption," i.e. transmutation, "draws near." St. Luke 21:25 through 28. So I bet you didn't realize you were going to get into all this with me today, did you? My goodness. But look, I don't encourage there to be a fearful response to this information. If this is the big picture, if this is what's really going on, then it's up to us to understand it and to make use of the knowledge. If these higher beings are trying to bring us into a higher level of creation, then let's study what happened and let's get to the core of it. So I want to talk more about the Tibetans, because this is where it all starts to make